My first two skills that made me multiple six figures was email marketing, writing copy, and phone sales. The third skill that helped me go from 275K straight into $1.2 million. The biggest leverage point was doing.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy to have you here. I've literally been watching so much of your stuff recently. Since I've heard your name, I've done all my research. I've been doing all the things, and you're epic. And what I absolutely love about you is you genuinely do care about your students' results. And so that's why I really wanted to get you on and talk to my ladies, because you're everything that I'm about. So thank you so much for joining. How are you doing?
You're welcome. I am doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I am excited to share whatever it is that you want to get to know more of.
Oh, don't worry. I'm gonna be picking your brains. I'm gonna be picking it all. So it's all good. So tell us a little bit, take us back. Because right now, as we're recording this, you are in a penthouse in London. And I know that you did not grow up in a penthouse in London, but you've had amazing success. So take us back and tell us a little bit about where it all started and how you've ended up here.
Yeah, so I got started, when I was 21. So now I'm 34. This was about 12, 13 years ago. And just like most people, I was taught to go to school, college, university, get a degree, get a job, work for 20 years somewhere in Canary Wharf, something like that, in some big office building. And I remember just thinking to myself, is this all that life has to offer? And that one question just kept coming up. Is this what life has to offer? What's more? What else could I be doing? And to be very fair, almost all the people, my family, my friends, older friends, relatives, they all had degrees. They all had some sort of corporate career jobs. And none of them seemed to be happy. None of them seemed to be rich, or none of them seemed to be living their dream. And I was like, there has to be another way, right? And so because of that questioning, I started opening up my mind to what's possible. And I'm sure, just like many people listening, when you're seeing other people on the internet and you're like, how is that person making all sorts of money? They don't seem that much more different than me. That's how I felt. So I started going to seminars in London. I used to go to all the free seminars. I used to print out free Vista print business cards, if you can imagine that, right? Where it used to say printed by Vista print. Because I was like, I don't have money to buy business cards. And I would go to all these free networking events every single weekend. I'd find stuff on Google and on Facebook, and I'd go to all these events and I'd try to figure out what is going on, because I wanted to be around those right people. And it was only when I started finding lots of different people that I could invest in. So I started investing in courses, mentorships, programs, masterminds. And no, I did not have lots of money when I got started, and my dad didn't give me much money. But what I was able to do was I was able to understand good debt versus bad debt. And good debt is essentially when you're investing in your own education, when you're hiring mentors and you're buying courses and coaching, versus bad debt is when you're buying liabilities. So I got myself into a lot of debt in my earlier years, when I was 21 years old. I'd literally, anyone that I would meet, whether it's family, friends, relatives, random strangers, it was so weird now that I say this, but I would always ask them, hey, I'm a young budding entrepreneur. Is there any chance you can lend me some money? And it was like, now I look back and I'm like, wow, I was so naive and so crazy. Like, imagine I just met you and I got to know you, and then you said you had a job. In my mind, I'd figure out, if she's making $3,000 a month, if she's been working for the last 3 years, she must have some savings. She'll be a good person to ask for money. And I would just ask people. And I remember, like my auntie maybe gave me $5,000. My dad, like, hesitantly gave me $5,000. My younger brother gave me maybe, $1,000 or whatever. My best friend. And I remember, this is crazy, but this is the power of asking. Okay. And when I share this story all over the world, people sometimes seem to find my Facebook or my Instagram and message me. Okay. If you're watching this, you're not allowed to message me asking me for money. This was 12, 13 years ago. We didn't have all of this free information and this great podcast like this where you're on right now. So I remember there was this couple in New Zealand. I had messaged them. I had a chat with them on Skype. Okay, remember, this is in New Zealand, so on the other side of the world. And I kid you not, I remember them saying to me, you look like you're going to go somewhere in life. I was this young, broke kid no confidence whatsoever, except I had confidence to ask for money. And I remember them saying, we're going to wire you the money. And I thought, this can't be true. Within like a couple of days, the wire came through and it was $28,000. So imagine, because I was asking people, I got it. And I was like, oh my God. I remember printing it out as my Barclays statement. And I ran downstairs, used to live with my parents. And I told them, Mom, Dad, like, check this out. And they were like, what is this? Like, why would someone just give you money? And I'm like, I told them I need money to buy these courses. And this couple just believed in me. And then they just lent me the money. And, my parents are like, you got to pay them back. I'm like, no, I got to use it. And then I want to pay them back. And I did. And I paid everyone back. But that's how I got started, right? And in the earlier years, I struggled with shiny object syndrome, chasing different gurus and mentors and programs and different ways to make money, until I came to the realization, instead of thinking tactically and from a business opportunity standpoint, I need to look and think strategically, long term. And what that got me to do was start learning and then stacking skills. Because this is why I see the biggest problem that people have. When you are here, whatever that is, that baseline, and you're trying to get to here, what's missing is skill acquisition. What's missing is a lack of skills. So either you develop the skills yourself, or you must go hire someone that has those skills. And if you can match those two together, then you're literally growing nonstop. And then you realize 5 years, 10 years later, you're like, whoa, like what the heck just happened? And so that's what happened to me. So my first year full-time online marketing, I made over 120K. My second year, I made 275K. And my third year, I made $1.2 million. And at the time, I was around 23, 24 years old. And once I got it, I was like, this is cool. Like I was a young, freshly minted millionaire. So I called up my dad and and I'm thinking, okay, my dad's going to say, this is awesome, amazing. He turns around and he's like, son, don't tell nobody. And I'm like, this is what typical Asian dads would do. He's like, you got lucky, probably not going to do it again. And I was like, Dad, I learned this system and I follow this mentor and I follow this blueprint. If I done it once, I think I can do it again. And so I did it again and again and again. And, that's how I basically was able to get these awards, generated over $30 million before I turned 30 years old, which is somewhat cool. Some people find it cool. What's actually cooler is this weekend, just a couple of days ago, I was invited to speak at Cambridge University. And this is someone who dropped out of university my final year, grew up in East London, and can't probably string a full sentence together without typos and grammars. So that's essentially where I'm at. And as to what I'm doing right now, I've been very blessed and fortunate. So I'm very grateful for the opportunities that has come my way. I've traveled a lot over the last 10 plus years. And as I've traveled, I've got to connect with different people and different mentors and different businesses, and different investments have opened up. So that's where I'm at. And
I love it. Well, I mean, I love that story. It's so good. And I think like so many people can relate to that place, I've definitely been in this place a lot, where you're working. When you said you had 1 year and you earned 120, and then the second year was 270 or something, and then it went up to 1.3. What do you think that was that like tipped it? Like I always talk about the compound effect, and obviously it all just kicks in, but how did you go from that to that? Because people are waiting for that break, aren't they?
Yeah, so many people, like the first 100K is the hardest. So you have to nail down product market fit. You have to find 3 to 10 people that are going to know you, like you, trust you, that have the ability to pay you $10,000 each. If you get 10 people to pay you $10,000, it's not that hard. You make your first 100K, right? But that's the hardest for people to wrap their head around mentally. That's the hardest, because most of the time they're not growing up, or they're not surrounding themselves with people that make that sort of money, right? But if you meet people and you talk to people that make, say, $1 million a year, for them, it's not a lot of money. Like I know people, like one of my friends, close friend of mine, is making, say, $50 million a year. When I talk to him, for him, it's not that much money. It's not even just about the money. It's about the chase of just being better, just beating each year. So for me, what had happened was I learned you have to get good at skills and selling stuff, right? So, by the way, when I was 21, I was really overweight. I had long, greasy hair. Okay, don't try to find my pictures because I think there's only one or two that exist. But I wasn't like this how I am today, right? And so I remember early on, I didn't want to get on camera. YouTube was just starting off. There was no such thing as Instagram. Facebook was just coming up. And I learned copywriting. I learned how to turn emails into cash. And so I would write emails and I would make money. And that got me to 120K. The next year I did 275K. And when that happened, I came across a guy called Brendan Bouchard, which most people will know. And Brendan said, you have to get on video / webinars. And I was thinking to myself, wow, what the heck is a webinar? Now I didn't want to do videos, but I thought, hey, I could stand in front of a PowerPoint slide, talk over it, tell some stories, make some offers, and that's what I want to do. And I remember like my first webinar, I was so nervous. I was sweating. I was thinking to myself, I'm going to have like 50 people on. I think 10 people or 11 people showed up. And I was just mumbling around. And at the end of that webinar, I said, I am never doing a webinar ever again. Webinars suck. I'm going to go back to doing emails and doing phone sales, because those are my first two skills that made me multiple six figures was email marketing, writing copy, and phone sales. The third skill that helped me go from 275K straight into 1.2, it was $1.2 million, because the following year I doubled it to 2.4 million. 1.2 mil, the biggest leverage point was doing webinars. So I got really good at doing webinars, presenting. And then the next year I hired 1 or 2 people extra, and that's what's got me to 2.4 million. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can double every year. And then it went to 3.6 and then 6.5 million and then close to 8 million in a year. And I was like, it's because I started doubling down on the skills. So I'd say that's the biggest thing. And it comes down to, if you don't have the skills, then you must find other people, partners, friends, mentors that have the skills and bring them on. So then your team produces. Like as the business grows, I realize I have to work less and I have to get the team to work more.
Yeah, it's so true, because you can get caught up doing the stuff that just doesn't move the needle, doesn't it? And if you're like, it's crazy that you say you weren't good at webinars now, because you're so good at talking on camera now. You feel like it looks like you're in your zone of genius. But
yeah,
if you weren't doing that and you were spending all of your time doing admin and stuff like that, it's just the business isn't going to grow. And that's where people get stuck, isn't it?
100%. I was very lucky because when I was, when I was getting started online, I tried doing so many different things. And then within 3 months, I realized, okay, like I can go to all the courses, I can watch videos, I can do it. I can learn to do like WordPress and HTML, all of this stuff, which I wasn't really that good at it. And then I came across this article and it basically said like, write down 10 things to do each day. And I'm sure everyone listening, you have 10 things to do each day. Like today I have like 15 different calls and what's all sorts of stuff. And then when you look at this list, ask yourself, what's the 80-20? So if you could do nothing, but just do 2 things, and then the rest of the things has to be done by someone else. So one of my mentors, a guy called, there you go, this guy over here, Dan Sullivan, I paid him about $35,000. He has a company called Strategic Coach, and he popularized this term, which is, it's not what to do, it's who can do it, right? So when I'm looking to do something, for example, like I do challenges, right? When I'm doing challenges, there's like I'm not kidding, there's at least like 50 different steps to follow. Okay. The only goal I have and the only one job I have is show up, perform, do the thing on video, present, then go. Everything else has to be done by my team. And so early on, I basically discovered I don't want to do anything admin or technical. What I want to do is just, like you said, present on webinars. And so I found people and they weren't that much money, mainly because they were an ex-school friend and my cousin. And I literally paid them £200 a month, which is like $300 a month. And I told them, this is what I'm doing. I'm going somewhere. You guys can come and join me. And this is what I can afford to pay you guys. And for the last, 12, 13 years, I've always had a personal assistant executive assistant. I've had technical help. Just before this call, I was talking to guys that are running my Facebook ads and my YouTube ads. Even till today, I still don't on my own traffic. What I do understand and what I got really good at was human behavior, human psychology, being able to persuade and influence people to take them from a place of curious or just slightly interested and take them up to where they're very serious, and then they become a committed buyer and a high ticket buyer. So that's, if you're stuck in that position where you're like, so much things to do, there's always so many things to do. But the question is, who said you have to do it? Right? So then it's not, oh, I have to do all of this. Then it's who can come on my team? Who can I acquire as talent that can come and help me? That was a big differentiator. And for the webinar stuff, my first webinar sucked, and I'm sure my first 10 webinars sucked. And then I remember I started getting good at webinars. I did an affiliate promo. I promoted someone else. That webinar went on to do about $300,000. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, well, one of the things I was helping you on was your own campaign, right? And I said, the money comes from the follow-up. Well, guess what? About 12 years ago, I was doing a webinar and I was so scared first to promote. So I promote this webinar. And I remember I was doing every single thing I can to not show up. So I was like maybe 22 years old or whatever, or 23. And I'm flying to Sydney, Australia from London. It's like 24-hour flight. I land and I'm thinking to myself, my team have done the webinar and they're just going to tell me they've made a few $1,000, whatever. I land and my team says, hey, you've got 2 hours. You can rest and then do the webinar. And it was like 4 a.m., by the way. So I was wide awake. And I'm like, okay, we've got a bunch of people that are showing up for this webinar. I'm just going to do the webinar. And I'm like, I jump on, I introduce the speaker. He comes in, he does his pitch. And that night we made $55,000. And for me, I was like, yeah, this is so sick. Like, I can't even believe this is more money than I've ever made in a single month or whatever, right? And the guy goes to me, you need to send the replay. And I was like, no. People are going to be pissed off. I can't send no replays. And he goes, no. You need to send the replay. And I sent the replay. And I remember the next day we made like $59,000. And I was like, he said something like, the more you mail, the more money you're going to make. And I was like, you don't need to tell me anymore. And I remember like every single day, I just sent an email to the list, non-stop promoted. After about 3 weeks of promotion, that campaign did over $320,000. Now I'm like, okay, if I've done 10 different things, one thing produces more money than everything else. Webinars. I need to go and master how to do webinars. So I start putting out offers, one offer, selling something for $2,000, $5,000, $10,000. And then I remember the year I had, one of the biggest years I had was we created an offer and it was $10,000. And I'm doing the webinar, invited a bunch of people. And I thought, man, if I get 5 to 10 sales in a day, I'm good. And I had just moved into another penthouse. This one is on the river. But I moved into another penthouse, really fancy one in Canary Wharf. And I'm doing this webinar, right? And I'm thinking, if I get 5 to 10 sales, it's game over. Like it's 50 to 100 grand in a day. I do the webinar, I make the offer. It was a very compelling offer. And we get 120 applications, 120 sales, not applications, 120 sales at $10,000. And I was like, that's $1.2 million from one single webinar. And then I worked out between how many hours I prepared for the webinar and then how many hours I actually presented the webinar last year. And then how many hours, like my team delivered and all of this stuff, right? And then I was like, this means my hourly rate is like $50,000 an hour. Like, this is just insane. So now if there's like 10 things to do, and webinar is one of them, guess what? Webinar is on the top of the list. And I've carried that habit on throughout the last decade. And so I think what also tends to happen is as you start getting momentum, you're going to figure out, oh, these are the winning habits. Like I know if I do a podcast, it's this much value. If I do a YouTube video, it's this much value. If I do a webinar, it's this much value. If I do a live in-person event, it's this much value. So, and then you just double down on what's working.
So true. What makes, because there's a lot of webinars out there. Like obviously you started webinars 12 years ago. Now every Tom, Dick and Harry is doing a webinar. What do you think makes a great one? And what do you think makes a terrible one?
Systems, formula, that's 100. This is from one of my mentors who's done over 100 million dollars. And I think that's about 3-4 years old. And that's always on my desk. So it's having systems and formulas that is proven. So I would say never create a webinar from scratch. When you do a webinar, always start with the offer in mind and who's going to be the ideal client, right? So for example, if someone wants like funnels and stuff like that from my company, our pricing starts from 10K to 30K. So we don't really necessarily sell anything for a few $1,000. So that means the ideal client that we have is going to be someone who's already somewhat serious about starting an online business / they have a business, or they've already established themselves as some sort of coach consultant, versus someone who's completely new and they're in a 9-to-5 job, right? If someone comes up to me and they're like, I don't know who Russell Brunson is or Grant Cardone, or I don't know what ClickFunnels is or what a funnel is, that's going to be very hard. That's not the ideal customer for me. Does that make sense? So life becomes much more higher quality, much more different if you can attract the right people at the right prices. So I think hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. So it's just the main thing I think always with webinars is that I've definitely been caught in the trap before of it, not giving enough, where people are like, oh, I feel like I got on the webinar then, but she didn't really tell me much. Then I've gone the other way and given too much, where they're like, wow, that was so much information. I don't think I actually need to buy the program. I'm going to go and work on that. So where is the balance? Okay,
the balance is the content that you're pitching, you're offering the what is on a high level overview. Now, if I tell you, hey, I'm going to show you how funnels work. You've heard of funnels, yes? Okay, come and spend time with me and I'm going to show you 7 steps to a converting funnel. And all I'll do is have a slide that basically says, first stage of a funnel is an opt-in page. People make the mistake of they do social media, they try to have an Instagram profile, they're making YouTube videos, but they're not building the list. Are you guilty of this? Have you made the grave mistake of reading books and going to seminars and looking all great for social media, but you're not building your list every day? Yes. So now that's because I'm teaching a lesson. That lesson is creating the epiphany with a story, right? So if I say that story and then I say, hey, when I started, I realized a subscriber equals $1 per month. So if you want to make $10,000 a month, you need to have 10,000 subscribers. If you want to make 100K per month, have 100,000 subscribers. If you want to make $1 million a month, have 1 million subscribers. That's a big commonality that almost all the top people will say in the industry. Okay, if that's true and you believe that, well, guess what? When I was starting off, here's what happened. I started off and I would spend time doing everything except building my list. And guess what happened? It cost me, say, 3 months or 6 months of not building my list. Does that make sense? So what I've done now is I've taught them something. So subconsciously, they know, like, and trust me. They're looking up to me because I've taught them something of value, but I'm not going into detail. Like, here's how to set up a list on Aweber or Active Campaign. Does that make sense? So I still got their attention. If you go too much into detail, you're going to lose their attention. If you lose their attention, you lose your ability to influence and persuade them to make a buying decision. So as soon as they have, oh, okay, I get it, I need to build a list. Boom, I'm moving on to the next one. I'm moving on. And then as I'm going through the 7 steps, okay, so if you think about it, a webinar, 90 minutes, 30 minutes, introducing the concept, telling your story, 30 minutes content, 30 minutes, you're doing the pitch. Whilst they're going through the content, they must have excitement and a little bit of fear, like logic gain, logic, fear, right? They need to learn something. So that's the gain. They need to know logically, okay, this is making sense. And then there needs to be some element of fear, scarcity, urgency. Because if you're like, hey, come and buy my digital course, it's available for 10,000 people. Like humans don't act like that, right? There's a reason why people go crazy on Black Friday. Or in the UK, we have Harrods sale, and I don't know, we have a bunch of sales in the UK. We have Black Friday in the UK as well, right?
Yeah, of course. Black Friday
Yeah.
started already. Black Friday is like the whole month now.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, so yeah, so people go crazy for these sales, and so when you think of it like that, then it's just human buying behavior, right? Like, how do you incorporate that into your webinar? Nothing beats, like, if you get the audience right and then you get an offer right, it just sells itself. That's what I found, and I've done a lot of webinars.
Yeah, so good. And you're smashing out the challenges now as well. You're who I'm learning challenges from. So tell us about the challenge world.
Okay.
Who is it for? Where does the challenge really work as a launch?
Yeah. So in terms of funnels, right? Like, I look at it as the first funnel everyone should have is a call funnel, which is, hey, let me get to know you. Okay, come along. In one webinar, 30 to 45 minutes, boom, you can come in and check it out. So that's my first funnel, right? On funnels.com, you can basically check it out. It's a call funnel. It asks for one thing: book a phone call. On that phone call, we'll offer products from 10K to 30K. Now, not everyone has 10 to 30K, or not everyone will come in and be like, hey, I just came across you, I'm going to give you $10,000. It doesn't work like that. So now we have to have a feeder funnel, a funnel that captures a lot of the audience, then educates them and gets them to buy. You asked me, why does my webinars convert? The same formula that I use on webinars is the same or similar structure that I use on challenges. How did I come across challenges? Why is it so valuable? I'm part of a mastermind. It has almost all this top smart entrepreneurs in our industry. Literally, like, I don't know, people like Mary Folio's in there, Joe Polish, Ibn Pagan, Pedro Adao, Alex Somosi. There's like so many different really cool guys and girls in there. And one of the guys, Roland Frazier, he comes along once and he says, hey guys, this was just before pandemic. He's like, hey guys, we just spent $10,000 and we made back $880,000. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what is this? And then he breaks down every single thing that he did. And essentially it was a challenge funnel. Okay. So I tell my team, hey guys, the mastermind is saying they're doing this challenge. Let's do a 5-day challenge. So this was the first time I ran this challenge. We spent $5,000. We had 200 customers come in, about 120, 130-ish showed up live. And on the back end, we made over $450,000. And I'm like, this is sick. Okay, we need to do this often. And so that's why over the last few years, I've been doing them over and over again. One of my earlier challenges this year, we spent about $15,000 and made $360,000 cash. So again, challenge funnels are like, if you see almost all the top marketers, entrepreneurs, they're doing challenges, right? I just spent a weekend with Russell Brunson in Boise, Idaho. I was invited to attend that event. It's for like all the top affiliates and whatnot. And I got on stage and I was telling them how I spent like $50,000 and profited almost over $1 million cash from doing challenges. Now, if I've been in the game for a long time, right? Like over 10 plus years. And so if someone was to tell me about X funnel that gives you 5, 10, 20X returns, I'm like, I've heard it all. I've seen it all. But now, like these challenge funnels, and one of the reasons why it works is because it's usually live. 2, you're bringing in people from all sorts of different backgrounds and industries, and you're educating them. It goes back to my webinar stuff, right? You're educating them step by step over a period of 5 days. And you can spend like 1 hour a day, you can do 3 hours a day, whatever the case is. So that's why the challenge funnels work. I'm absolutely in love with it. I'm doing 5-day challenges. I just did one this month. I'm doing another one in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time. And then I'm following up into a 3-day summit / workshop style virtual. And that's the coolest thing is You don't even have to meet anyone in person, right? Because I used to do live events in person where I'd spend, say, 15 to 20K for a hotel room for 3 days, right? I would like to always overspend. So I usually would spend like another 10, 15 grand just buying everyone, all the attendees food. Like, and before I knew it, if I flew out a couple of speakers, I'm already down like 40K to 60K on the event before I make any profit. Whereas with a challenge funnel, there's no hotels, there's no dinners that I'm buying for anyone. So I can put my focus, my energy on giving a premium service and basically offering them more of my products.
I love it. I'm thinking of doing a summit as well, actually. Is it you're going to do that in January to kick off January?
Yeah, three-day summit in January, and just call it like, I don't know, making 2023 your best year ever. I don't know. I'll come up with something.
Yeah.
The 3-day summits are really, really hot right now.
And they're so good for building your list as well, aren't they? Because you're also leveraging the lists of your guests as well. So if they promote it, it's a great way of building it.
Yeah. Having affiliates on board and then having, driving traffic. It also has like a viral component to it if it's done right, where you can say, hey, now that you've purchased this, go and share it on your social media and we'll give you XYZ bonuses.
Mm-hmm. So do you charge for the summit?
For this one, we're going to charge, I think, $97 and then $497.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good work.
Yeah, $97, $497. And I'm even thinking of, I like to always push the boundaries. So I'm also thinking, what if I charge $5,000 for just 20 people and then put them in a physical room? So whilst I'm doing the event for 20 people in person, right? The rest of everyone else that pays the $97 or $497, they get virtual access.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And you're getting the best of both.
Yeah. And then I have a nice chunk of people in person, for interaction and whatnot. And then I have people virtually. So I saw Russell do that this past weekend or a few weekends ago. So, yeah.
I love it. I just have a quick question about evergreen, because this is another mistake that a lot of people make, is trying to go evergreen too early. So you are pro live a lot, aren't you?
Yes.
At what point do you think something like a webinar or a challenge or something like that is a good point to
really
go like
depends
evergreen?
On what your goals are. If you just want to have a life and take it easy, then you can do automated challenges and then show up, right? But what I found is some things just perform better when it's live, and here's the thing. If I said to you, hey, do this automated challenge and you're going to make $30,000, but if you show up live and you get 5 extra sales and now you can make an extra 100K, it's now your choice. Do you want to stick with 30K or do you want to make 130K? Right? So for me, if there's like, say, 50 or 100 people on a challenge and I see you, I see Mikey, I can just say, hey, Carly, tell me a little bit about yourself. Now, in that moment, you feel so much more special and so much more connected. If it was automated, how am I going to do that? I can't call you. I can't have a one-on-one conversation with you, right? So I've done this. And by the way, I learned this back in the day when I used to do event speaking. So when I started doing events, I would speak on stage, and in my earlier days, I would just completely bomb. Like it was just no one was buying anything from me. Okay, no one. And all my friends would go out and crush it and kill it and convert the room. And I was there like thinking, what the heck's going on? As I started getting good at it, I would go into a room and I would just convert 50% of the room into, a $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 program. So I got really good at it. And then one day I remember it was in Singapore, and instead of having like maybe 50 people in the room, we had like 17 or 20 people. And I was like so disheartened. And one of my mentors, he said, if the room is too small, then just focus one by one on everyone. And I remember literally that room, I converted like 69 or 68%. It was a small room, but the conversions were high because I was giving everyone attention. So if you're listening to this and you're afraid of doing a challenge or a webinar, don't compare yourself to someone maybe like me or with Carly. Compare yourself to, hey, if you got 5 or 10 people, these are 5 or 10 real human beings that you can nurture, you can take care of them, you can really go much deeper with them. So I remember doing that event, it was in Singapore, I think at the Holiday Inn hotel. And I would literally go to each person and tell them, why are you here? And what's your dream goals? And what do you think is holding you back? And really going deep into them. And then they converted. And so you could do that on a challenge or on a webinar. And I strongly believe if you do that, that's the difference between doing a webinar that makes, 10 to 30K, a challenge, 10 to 30K versus doing one that will pull in 6 figures.
Mm-hmm. Good to know. It's the energy, isn't it? The energy and the connection, and that's, you just can't.
And then people vibe off this, right? People will be able to see your energy. If you're just doing it for the money, I get it. It's people will say, but we need to make money, or we've got bills to pay. I totally get that. But one thing I'll say is, when you want to do something live, whether it's a webinar, challenge, speaking gig, be as present as possible. So one like brain dump exercise you can do is just like pull out a piece of paper and just write down like 10 things that's on your head. So it's on the paper and you can just say to yourself, hey, you know what? I'm going to deal with this later on. Right now I have an opportunity. I want to be present. I want to give, and I want to serve as many people as I can. And every time I've come from that mindset, I always make more money, right? Like if I do a challenge just for the sake of making as much money, I'm like, I don't know. There's just like the energy, you can't fake it, right? Like right now, I'm like, I have this deep purpose where I'm like, during the last recession is when I got started, right? 2008, 2009. And I remember like dropping out of university, starting my internet business, everyone telling me, why did you drop out of university? And then this recession hits and I'm like, oh my God, what is a recession? I was like 21, 22 years old. But it was the best time ever because I learned high ticket marketing, high ticket sales funnels, right? They won't call sales funnels back then. They were just called high ticket offers or whatever they were called. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, this new recession is here. I need to take full responsibility. I need to write books. I need to write guides. I need to host events. I need to help as many people as possible because that's what helped me back then, right? Mm-hmm. During the fear and like the world and Lehman Bank going down, Lehman Brothers going down, all sorts of stuff that happened. Like someone helped me and I'm like, okay, now it's my responsibility to help. And if I help well, then the marketplace is going to reward me for it. And that's how you make lots of money.
Yeah, 100%. You just have to lead with value, don't you? And that you've answered it anyway, but I was going to ask you, like, what is it that's driving you now? Because you've made the money and you're doing all good, but you're still working so hard. I've seen what you're doing before. Is it just that kind of responsibility to give back?
Yeah, it's not even just to give back. It's like, because that's not me telling you the truth. Give back is like one aspect. The other aspect is, it's like once you know something, it's hard for you to just keep it within yourself, right? It's just like, it's like I have, the numbers to a winning lottery ticket. If you take action, for example, I advise you on your challenge. Okay, now that was probably your first challenge, right?
No, I did one before as well.
Okay, so that's only different. 2. Okay, but I've done like 10, 11. So let's just say I have like this much more experience than you. Same way with one of my friends who's done over, I think he's profited 12 or 15 million dollars. So not sales, not gross, but I think he profited 12 to 15 million dollars from challenges. And he's done about 20, 24. So I'm like, okay, I've got plenty to learn from him. And as I'm learning, I want to teach the people around me. Since you're around me, that's why I'm here and I'm helping you with yours. The thing is, it's more about how do I push myself because I know what's possible, right? Like I know people that do challenges and they make $1 million per challenge. Okay, I just had a text from a lady. I'm not going to mention her name right now, but I'm pretty sure you know her. She's doing $1.5 million a month from her challenges every single month consistently.
Wow.
So she just texts me saying we should chat because I have a friend, my friend met her and I'm like, okay, let's chat because I want to see what she's doing. And she doesn't do 5D challenges. She only does it 3 days. So I'm like, I'm sure that lady, she's not doing it just for the money, right? Like after a while, the money just becomes more of a novelty. It's just like, it's nice to have, but if I looked at every single thing through the lens, I'm like, how much is this podcast going to make me? Or, then life becomes a little bit dull, because I've experienced that as well, just so you know. So you have to have something more than just about yourself. And it's the hardest when you don't have money, because everyone's like, I don't care about people and giving back. I want to look after myself. But just the laws of nature, the laws of making money doesn't work like that. It works if your value, if the marketplace looks at you as valuable, and then your value can help others.
100%. I mean, I feel like I need to know who that woman is, because I want her on the podcast. I'll ask you later. Well, I so appreciate you. I could literally talk to you for ages about all things funnel. I'm so grateful for all the time you've given me. Can I ask you some quick fire questions quickly before we go? So I want you to finish my sentence. Happiness is?
Focusing on God.
Oh, success is?
Living life as a free man or a free
Very
woman.
good. What is a book or a podcast that changed your life?
There's a book that I recommend, and I used to just give it out to everyone. And let's see here. Yeah, it's actually here. And this is called How to Get. I have to put this in context. Okay, so what you didn't know, Carly, is that year that I made 275K. Okay, that was about, between both years, it was like over 400 grand. Okay, when you take a kid from East London that's not been around a lot of money, and you stick 400 grand in their account, ego and everything just goes through the roof. Okay, so that's what happened to me. And I was like, you know, I was this fat, overweight kid. No one believed in me. Now I've made so much money. I don't care. I don't need to listen to anyone. So I literally took all that money and I would just spend it on new friends that I met in Mayfair and Park Lane. Okay, and let's just say it was all the wrong things, doing all the wrong things. And within a span of probably about 6 months, I had blown through all of that money.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember logging into my bank account, and I still have the picture until today because I remind myself. And it was my Barclays bank account, and it said minus 283 pounds. And I thought to myself, wow, how does someone make that much money, life-changing amounts of money? Because I'm pretty sure no one in East London at my age, from my background, was making that sort of money. How does someone go from there, make that much money, and then lose all of it? And I remember back then I used to smoke shisha, hookah, and one of my friends said, so what are you going to do now? And I said, even if I've lost the money, I still have the skills to go out and do it again. And this time I'll try to hold on to some of it. And then the next year, I remember doing $1.2 million. And most of that was like high profit. And so then, you know, as I started growing, I forgot even the stuff that I did. And I remember one day someone said to me, like, how did you go from like losing it all, making it, then losing it all, and then going back? And I was like, I don't even know. But there was this one book I read, and it's got the cheesiest title ever. And I bought so many copies, and I gave to my friends and family. And it's by this guy. He's probably about 75 years old, 76 years old. And his name is TJ Rolleder. And the book is called How to Get Super Rich in the Opportunity Market. So anytime you teach, so the industry that we're in is BizOp, is business opportunities. People that are in 9 to 5, people that are beginners, people that want extra side hustle, they want extra income online. If you do not have experience buying business opportunities, then you will have a hard time selling business opportunities because you do not know the 26 secrets that's in this book. You do not know the different concepts that needs to appeal to those people. So I remember I had lost my money, and a mentor who was a millionaire, he recommended reading this book. And I thought, come on, like how to get super rich in the opportunity market. What was really cool is about 5-6 years ago, I met the author. Oh, there you go. This is what he looks like. I met this author. There you go. Hold on. There you go. Him. I met him in Costa Rica. And I just remember giving him the biggest hug because his book definitely changed my life. So I'd strongly recommend you get this book.
Oh, I'm going away on holiday on Friday. I think I'm going to order it.
Yeah.
Take it with me.
Yeah. Get it and read it, because that was I can tell you like so many, there's like, I think 800 books or something here. In terms of business, in terms of the stuff that we do, if I was giving you personal advice and I'd say, hey, you know, you want to make $1 million a year or $10 million a year, that's the book. Like, that's the book.
Oh, that was what I was after. That was the answer that I wanted, Shaq. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
And
by the way, I remember reading that book literally cover to cover. Like, I don't read books cover to cover. I read like few pages. I'm like, I read it cover to cover. And then I ordered a whole bunch, kept it in my Range Rover, and I would hand it out to people. Anyone that I met, I would hand it out. And then when I realized no one actually reads it when you hand out books, and no one was coming back to me with, hey, I made $1 million reading the book. I said, okay, I'm not going to give them out anymore.
It's so true, isn't it? If someone gets given something for free, they never value it. If they buy it themselves, and they value it. So true. Yeah. And my last question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
There's so many, and they're sometimes so cliched, but I'd say you become the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And I'd take it one step further, which is it's not just the average of the 5 people, but you'd earn the average of the 5 people that you're around, right? And so it's like, I'm always doing this thing, which is like, I'm like, who's in my circle and who do I need to go and upgrade? And either they upgrade or I have to find someone that upgrades my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so true, you know, because even since chatting to you recently, the way you speak about money and things like that, my thermostat of what's possible for me is completely changed. And the way that I speak about, like, I used to speak about earning 80 grand a month, like it was like huge. And now I'm thinking, I want to be earning like 800 grand a month. I want to be doing $1 million a month. And it seems like it's just shifted. And that's just because of the conversation that I've been having. Yeah. So it's good advice.
I appreciate
the shift. Well, where can everyone stalk you? Where can they find all things? Because you put amazing content out. So where can they see it all?
My Facebook, you just type in Shaqir Hussyin, Instagram.com/Shaqir Hussyin. And my main website is funnels.com. So if you go to funnels.com, funnels.com, I send a daily email, lots of freebies, lots of good stuff out there. So go ahead, check that out, funnels.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I so appreciate everything you do. And I'm so excited to see what you create.
All right, I appreciate it. And thanks for having me.
Thank you.